Welcome to my channel, and let's talk about my coloring life in August. Well, there won't be a lot of finished works in this video, and honestly part of them I actually colored in the end of July when I realized that during August I need to be absent from Kiev for some time to resolve some family matters. And when I return after a week or 10 days of absence, I also was in a very low mood because I saw with my own eyes all those destroyed cities around Kiev, Bucha, Irpin, and definitely I was at such a low point that it was very hard to return to the regular routine, to go back to hobbies or something else. So I was able to do when I finally started to color again only quite small and simplified pictures. I really tried to push myself out of such state because I wanted to return to coloring in full speed and full time. And I switched between different books. I tried new materials. Thank you for all your wonderful and very inspiring art presents which I received for my birthday. They also helped me to get my coloring mojo back. And probably the best thing about August is that I really used different pencil brands. I didn't stick just to the Prismacolors and Polychromoses, and I also used more budget pencils and watercolors. It was really a good thing. Let's start from something light and easy. In the end of July I did two dragons which I published in August. You remember that in July I started to color more in Alena Nouveau, Dragon Nouveau, and when I realized how much I love Arteza pencils on this paper and that bright palette of Arteza is perfect for dragons. In this book I did couple of these drinking dragons. For the first one I used more lilac or violet palette. I think that I mostly looked at Arteza palette and I was thinking which colors I can try for another type of dragon. It was fun, and I think that actually violet and lilac for such drinking bodies, they can be quite nice. Apart from Arteza, which I used on the wood, on the body of the dragon, I also used a little bit of Derwent drawings. As usual, Derwent drawings, they are always good for stoneworks, for all earth colors, and they work well on each paper. So here it's a mix of pencils, and I think that dragon himself, he looks quite lovely. Sometimes I'm lost at such tiny elements, but then I think that of course dragon is much more important, so if they are slightly visible on the page, it's okay. The most important part to do the beautiful dragon. And I had such a good time doing this one that I immediately started definitely brother of the previous dragon. They even have slightly similar colors. Even if here I used more reddish magenta and salmon colors, I always try to select one general color to color different parts of the body, one common color. Here it was magenta, and then I combine it with more darker, almost reddish brown, almost black color on the skin to make good shading, and on some of the areas like central part of the wings I added lighter colors, salmon pink, and everything worked really well. So again, I highly recommend to work with Arteza pencils, and I intend to use Arteza in all three my Legend Nouveau, Fantasy Nouveau, and Dragon Nouveau books. I think that it was that push which really helped me to start coloring more in these books. Apart from Arteza, I also started to use here my Castle Art pastel tints, mostly on the grass and bushes behind, because I didn't want them to be brighter comparing to the clothes of this troll. And what can I say? They felt waxy and pencil strokes were visible, but if you use them together with some of the creamier pencil, it helps to blend a little bit. I think that I also use them for this sky, so they are also not so bad on this paper, and if I need pastel colors, I will use Castle Arts here. Artisan pastel tints, I don't think that I tried here. You know that I love Castle Art pastel set a little bit more comparing to Arteza pencils, but I will give them a try. Maybe on this paper they will behave better and I will have better opinion about this strange new set of Arteza pastels. Anyway, with my finished work, I am absolutely happy. Nice, fun dragons. Any problems at all in coloring? Of course, I try to pay attention to the shading to make body of the dragon more three-dimensional. All those shadows behind the head, here between parts of the bodies, between dragon and troll. So I try to look carefully to deepen my shadows. I think that I needed a couple of rounds. I colored first, then I wasn't happy with the darkness of shadows, how deep they are, so I darkened them with black even more, and now I think that I like the final look. So quite easy pictures to do, and definitely one of the best books if you want to have fun and relax. I think that I will continue my Arteza experiments, which colors you can use for various types of the dragons. Next pictures. Let's have a look in mythographic series. I really surprised how well goes my progress in Paradise book. Honestly, when I got it, I wasn't very impressed. I thought that it would be one of my least favorite books in the mythographic series, but then I realized that actually it's easy to color. If you manage to hide hidden objects, and not only hidden objects, I also don't like this manner of Fabian Etenezer to add those lines. Where to show you. Here, excessive amount of these long lines, sometimes you can understand them, sometimes here, they are absolutely frustrating here. Those hidden objects, it's not so bad, but those lines, yeah, it's even worse. But on the pictures which I managed to do in August, I successfully covered them, so now I am perfectly happy with the look of my finished pictures. This one I started because I wanted to do something slightly less unusual for the leaves. You can see that my leaves, they are mostly blue-green, not regular normal greens which I use, and biggest part of this page I did with watercolors, so another good thing for me. Here on the background I did gradient from cold gray, so-called Marenga watercolor color, to Payne's gray and indigo. On the leaves I experimented with cobalt, with viridian colors. I mixed them, and if I needed more colorful accents or to deepen shadows on top of watercolor underpaint, I worked with pencils. I think that here I used Sioux colors. Sioux colors are really good on this paper, never I had any problems with them, but also I think that I used something, I don't remember because it was a long time ago. I think that I forgot a lot what I did before my such kind of break in August. So I decided that apart from the bright flamingos, I don't want to use any other bright colors, so my plumeria flowers have their traditional white and yellow look, and I think that they complemented nicely everything else on this page. Maybe amount of those lines, waves on the water, it was slightly excessive for my taste, and maybe I wasn't very successful with masking them, but At least with such a contrast between background and flamingos, they definitely stand out nicely against the background. So I think that I am happy with this color palette and with these light yellow reflections everywhere. So it was a good work. Another one was full time experiment, because I started with very unusual color for the background. You know that I actually prefer something much more typical, like blue background, green background, especially dark blue, and to do such red beginning, it was really unusual, but at the moment I was tired of traditional color combos. Of course, when I did color planning, I was thinking about traditional red roof with golden embellishment, but instead I decided that no, I will experiment with this dark red background. I made it with watercolors. Color is translated as Bordeaux or claret red, and I used tiniest amount of water. So paint, watercolor paint, it was creamy, it was almost opaque, and I managed to mask biggest amount of hidden objects and even part of those strange lines. That's where I was really frustrated. Yeah, you can imagine that they help you to imagine a rotation of the merry-go-round, but before I realized how I can color them, they were so frustrating when I did all those animals. I really disliked all those lines. Only when I covered them with gouache paints, I used a very light peach pink. It's called ballerina pink from Artisa set. They started to be more like part of this page. I was quite happy when I decided to do this mint green merry-go-round roof and base. I used color soft pencils, and even color softs, if you don't expect them to layer just cover paper, they can be used on this paper. So I think that I fell more and more in love with this series of the books. By the way, what is your opinion about newest books in this series? I definitely don't want the terror books by Fabiana, and I'm not sure that I want the menagerie, the last one. So I'm a little bit unsure if I want them or not. Maybe I will be waiting for the newest book by Bank, which will be published in October. And the rest of the elements here I did with polychromos pencils, because it was easy, because I already know which colors I love to use for the golden parts. When I need to color gold, it's quite easy to select my favorite pencils from polychromos, and together with such pencils like Pompeian red, Venetian red, which are not very excessive red colors, slightly muted, I managed to create those animals on the merry-go-round. So I think that it was a nice experiment, and I am happy that I went out of my comfort zone with such colors. Maybe I need to try more with such colorful backgrounds. And final work in mythographic series I did in mythographic frozen fantasies. Sometimes it was so hot during July and August that you definitely want to color something with ice creams, so I decided that frozen fantasies can help me for such frosty feeling. Here again I started with just from the experiments with the background color. I have a very bright green, it's called May green, and I combined for this simple background 3 green colors. I started with Hooker's green and then dark green near the sides of the page. Then in the middle I added those areas of May green, excessively bright green. But here surprisingly it helped, because I did these areas near the butterflies, so now because of this bright green they have more attention of the viewer. And after that I had a lot of fun doing all those pieces of eyes here. Of course I colored them with plumes. For me they are pieces of ice. I even used a little bit of metal paint, so those swirls again, which I totally hated. I did with blue-green metal watercolor paint. It was also quite opaque, so it also helped me to mask some of the elements, but the most complicated thing was that because of such background, I covered part of these beautiful and highly ornamental snowflakes. But happily with white Posca, I managed to outline them, and I think that now they are quite beautiful and important part of this coloring. I also used blue Posca for the smaller butterflies and a lot of nice tropical colors for the flowers. I colored butterflies on the last step and I wasn't sure which colors to select, but now I think that because of this deep brown and slightly different shade of blue, more intense compared to the eyes, they are in the same time a good part of the color composition, and they are also not lost among all the flowers because of the dark colors. So I am quite happy how everything turned, and again because of the watercolors, coloring was much quicker comparing to if I would do it with pencils only, and I fully intend to continue doing all my pictures in mythographic series with this mixed technique. First, it helps me to return to coloring with watercolors, and it helps to get better result. I really love how pencils work on top of watercolor. You can easily deepen shadow or blend colors. So it's a good technique, and I am glad that these books give me such possibility. Now let's have a look at Teresa Goodrich, which I colored in totally traditional way with Prismacolor pencils and Posca pens. In A Village Charm, again, I did something because of the heat, and of course I colored ice creams. Here, when I start to color another shop in Teresa Goodrich books, my main purpose is to select such color for the interior, for the advertising, for the canopies, that I wouldn't repeat all previous pictures, all previous shops which I colored in Main Street, for example. So here I opted for this a very intense yellow and orange, and I think that it works, especially when I did a couple of colder areas with the muted turquoise and gray here. So it was also quite fun. When I color, I always imagine all those tastes of ice creams, and it was a good addition to my collection of the shops. Here in Wish You Were Here, I selected probably Italian landscape with this lake city. It was part of my experiments how to color water. I am still far from being good at doing water and reflection in the water with Prismacolor pencils, but with each new page I think that I try to select more comfortable color combo for me. Here I decided that I will try to use slightly lighter colors for those buildings, but at the same time I wanted to make them also bright. You can see that here red and orange, they are slightly more intense. Those buildings, they are slightly more light and muted. I hope that I managed to add some depth to this page in such way. As usual, I tried to use Posca where it was possible to add a lightness, especially to the landscape which is far from us, to delete some of the excessive black lines. And I think that it also was not a bad thing. I struggled mostly with the water, such tiny area, but I didn't know, do I need to do all those reflections from the buildings or it's not natural. In the end I decided that no, only the boards on the water, they will be reflecting into the surface of the water, and I tried to do some waves, not very successfully, so I decided that my lake is calm and without wind, so I don't need waves. It's nice when you have your own explanation of your faults. But anyway, page was good and I enjoy doing these flower compositions. They always help me to relax when I color flowers in Teresa Goodrich books. Now let's have a look at the pile of the pictures which I did in the end of the month when I wanted to do something easy and quick without thinking too much. I think that I started Escape again because again I wanted to use not Prismacolors, not polychromoses, and I looked at my Inktense pencils. I realized that I hadn't touched them for some time, and that's where I decided that okay, I can use them somewhere on the good paper, and good paper I can find in Shakespeare's book. Here I even used graphite together with Inktense. Graphite helped me to create those stormy clouds. I really love that they are not only grey but with a little bit of like purplish undertone between them. I think that it helped to add depth. And it also helps to make some connection to those very intense red parts of the ship. Here I can't say that water was a huge success. Yeah, I enjoyed combining dark blue, medium blue and green blue shades from Inktense set, but again those lines, for me it was too much of them and I didn't have enough patience to mask. Some of the lines, yeah, they are helpful and they helped to define the shape of the waves, but some they look not very attractive, especially here on the foreground. So maybe next time, if I need to do water in this book and I still have several pictures where I can practice, I can select something more opaque comparing to Inktense pigment. But still I love the page and I'm always happy when I fill in another page here. So here we have part of the Tempest, obviously. The rest of the ships I did with polychromos pencils, and surprisingly that was probably the first time when I wasn't happy how polychromos behaved on good paper. I don't know, maybe it was because of my state of mind, because it was first one which I did when I returned. But I constantly needed blender. I used ivory to cover paper better. Something went wrong, so I definitely won't be using polychromoses for the whole picture in the future. Even budget pencils like Sucolors, they are easier for me to use. Still, I managed to do nice thing, but not as easily as I usually do with polychromoses. I was really surprised. After that, I did another simple work, but I looked at this page for a long time. I wanted to do it, but I wasn't sure which colors I can actually use for the letters and for the background. Then I thought that maybe dark brown can be a good choice, but I didn't make very wise choice of material, because here I used gouache and it provided me with very nice, almost a velvety cover, but it was complicated to cover it smoothly around all those intricate letters and bees. I managed to apply a couple of layers, but still brush strokes they were visible, and I decided that okay, I will mask it in my traditional way. I will sprinkle some shining paints on top of the matte surface, and it helped a little bit. Maybe I sprinkled excessive amount of paint here, but you know that I am always relaxed when I color in this book. I am not afraid to mess up. Images, they are nice but not very precious. So even if I mess up, for me it's just a learning process. And when I started to color with pencils, here I used Sucolors. I really love this waxy shining of pencils against the matte cover on the background. So it was nice, it was simple, and I enjoyed it. And finally, my third experiment in Shakespeare's I did when I received my wonderful coloring gifts, and among them I had this very interesting Kohinoor Progressa Aquarelle, and it's a woodless pencil, water soluble. It's just pigment. Very nice and very pleasant color, so thank you for choosing such a pleasant color, which I immediately started to use. Here I decided that for the Macbeth illustration I want to have this light misty background where I want to blend blue together with gray and purplish or violet color, because I wanted to use more intense violet and purple on the flowers, and of course background I wanted to have supporting color but not with such intensity. Here I used this Kohinoor Progressa together with one of the regular Kohinoor watercolor pencils and with one of the graphitins. It was aubergine probably. Anyways, this slightly more granulating violet color, it was provided by graphitin. Quite interesting, because this one it was more chalky and milky. This one it was more transparent but with bigger intensity. I applied first layer, I applied water, then I waited until they dried completely, and after that in couple of areas I worked with these pencils on the second layer as with dry pencils without adding water again. So I think that this background I deliberately wanted it to be with those stains, so that's artistic effect. It's not because I wasn't able to do smooth background. Here I wanted solid color without stains, and here I wanted those stains, so I purposely did it. Then here I used different pencils. For the greens I even managed to use my Mitsubishi, and for smaller areas they were quite good. For the gold again I used polychromasis, the skull with watercolors, so it's fully mixed media coloring, easy and nice, and I think that in the end everything worked quite well. Another finished spread, and I am very proud of it. Next one was spontaneous, was quick, without any initial idea, just to play with my watercolors. It's Escape to Christmas part, and I decided to do this page where Ghost and Scrooge, they are traveling above the black and having sea. You know that I love to color all the lighthouses, so when I have a page with lighthouse, I immediately want to start doing it. I already did a lot of pictures with lighthouses, and each time I tried to select slightly different media or slightly different colors. First I was thinking about doing traditional red stripes, but then I decided that no, it would be not matching the idea of this page. So everything here is muted and gloomy. For the clouds I blended two very strange paints. One was dusky pink, and it's granulating color which provides with this grayish purple, but after that I also added a royal blue. Maybe it's not very visible, but it helped to add some small color accents to the bottom part of the clouds. Here I used also gray-green to the ground, because I wanted to show that actually we have winter, we can't have any bright colors on the grass, so everything is dark and muted. Then indigo for the water, and a lot of white paint to create form and to soften shapes of the clouds. Then I decided that at least one bright spot I need here, so my buildings, they are in Norwegian or Iceland style with very bright walls, but I think that it was a nice addition. The only thing where I wasn't very happy is when I started to color the light around the lighthouse. My brush, it was slightly dirty. I don't know how, but I forgot to clean it, so it had greenish, reminding of the greenish watercolor. And when I started to apply it, to fill it with yellow color, the first wash wasn't very good, and instead of light yellow I had to cover it with more orange color to cover the first not very successful layer, but in the end it worked. And I was surprised that actually the whole page I did probably in 15 minutes, and only when I started to add that white paint and to deepen shadows on the base of the lighthouse with pencil, I spent a little bit more time, so it was probably half an hour for the whole page. Very quick. Yeah, it's small, but also it's because of the watercolors. Next one, we will have a look at my one and only finished page in Care de Rosanes. It's a shame because I have huge plans for this book, but when I wasn't in a good mood or when I wasn't in very creative state, I decided that I will think about my plans. I can do color planning, but I won't start to do something here until I am not fully back. And the only page which I did, it was in the very end of the book. Here I did this atlas. Of course, when you look at the front cover, you think that it's so beautiful that you want to repeat it. But I decided that no, I will try to do something from myself. And I started from this quite dramatic sky, dramatic clouds. I think that it helped to add some drama to the page. Successful parts here are those columns and body of the atlas, but I think that I totally failed to attract more attention to Hercules, which we have here preparing to trick poor Atlas. I also didn't know how to color inner part here inside of the globe, because we have not only shape of the Earth but also some planets, and now they are slightly lost. But I had a lot of fun doing all those animals and those snakes or dragon with multiple heads. Anyway, as usual, it was nice to color here. I think that I already decided that in this book I mostly will use Prismacolors and polychromases, and here I have a blend of such pencils. Now I selected which will be my next pictures here, so I hope that in the end of September we will look at bigger amount of finished pictures. And finally, Hanoka Yegusa. I think that in the end of July I already shown you how I started to do this page with bunnies. It was half colored at the moment, and now I finished it. On this paper I love to use Prismacolors. Now I use Prismacolors and Posca pens, trying to soften lines at least on the flowers and on the animals. Honestly, I more enjoy doing all those things which we have on the shelves, those flower pots and watering cans. I struggled as usual with fur, so my bunnies, they are not very furry and slightly boring, but at least I think that color combo is relatively well balanced. I wasn't sure about color for this dress. I already tried to spread those pink, blue and purple among the various elements. I decided that on the bunnies I can use those bright kerchiefs and ribbons to attract attention with this bright red. So in the end I did this pastel pink color. It's slightly bothering me, but everything else, especially color for the faded wall and color for the faded bricks, I think that it worked pretty well. And as usual, I love to color focus glows. Probably they were main reason why I decided to start doing this page. And if I want to fill the whole book, I need to color everything here. So when I finished this page, I started also page on the left. I hope that pastel colors which I used on the upper part, they will be visible under the electric light, but at least I will try to make normal photo under the natural light, and I will post it on Instagram. Not very fun thing about this page was that I colored it during our Independence Day, which was at August 24th, and at that day we were prepared to have massive raid attacks, and in the end, here in Kiev we had 9 of them. And you can imagine that you sit home because everyone had to stay home, because we were prepared to be attacked. You start to color to calm yourself, and then you had constantly to, you hear the air raid siren, you stop filming, you start coloring, you go to the shelter, then you return, and after 5 of such sirens I didn't remember what were my coloring plans. So in the end, when I managed to finish it, and finish it in quite satisfying way, I was crazy happy that I didn't mess up. Maybe for such nervous days I need to select something more simple, but I wanted to use the fact that we had the day off, and I didn't expect to have 9 air raid sirens. Anyway, let's talk about colors. I think that those pastel blue and blue-green colors will help me to create atmosphere of the wet forest around my mice. I tried to divide all elements into groups with more light and pastel colors, those flowers, those mushrooms, and a group with more intense and bright colors, these mushrooms in the middle. So I hope that attention of the viewer it goes to the central part. My mice, they are not very bright obviously, and to attract more attention to them I tried to use darker, almost black color for some areas on their fur, and in the end I added at least something really bright with those forget-me-not flowers on the bottom part. Well, I think that it's not bad, at least what I planned to do. In the end I managed to color, but process was a little bit complicated, especially because I film, so I had to stop my camera, and then I had to start filming again with the same color and white balance setting. Well, but difficulties, sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's not so important comparing to other problems. And we have the end of my results. I already created a list of the pictures which I want to color in September, so video also will be on my channel soon. Thank you again for all your birthday wishes, for all your presents. They were amazing, and it was exactly what I needed at the moment to start thinking about coloring again. And I hope that very soon you will see all of these new art supplies and books on my channel. Thank you, and I hope that you will have a wonderful first month of fall season, still with nice weather, and of course I wish you all peace, and take care of your loved ones. Thank you, and see you very soon.